enough talk about what is value or why we want to know the value of something. Let's look at how you could value things. And I'm going to do so in two main chapters. First, I'm going to look at revealed preferences, and then I'm going to look at stated preferences. And in revealed preferences, I'm first going to look at the principles, and then at the three main methods: defensive expenditure, trouble cost, and hedonic pricing. This is where we are in the sequence. We're about halfway. Let's look at the principles behind revealed preference methods. And essentially what you do is that you infer preferences for environmental goods by analyzing the behavior in real markets, actual behavior in real markets that are somehow related to the environmental good or service that you would want to value. And these related markets are often called surrogate markets. And I underline two things here. One is that we infer preferences. As an analyst, we do not impose preferences or substitute the preferences of people out there for our own preferences. No, we're trying to measure the preferences of actual people. And second, and that is what sets revealed preference methods apart from stated preferences, we're looking at actual behavior in actual markets. Existing markets, not some hypothetical markets. There's three kinds of these surrogate markets. First, the environmental goods may be a substitute for a marketed good. Utility is derived either from the environment or from the market, either the environment or the market. And one example is water. You can buy a bottle of water from the shop, or you can walk to the stream and drink water from there. And they are substitutes because you don't need all the water in the world. You just need as much as needed to quench your thirst. Looking at the rain outside. And it's either or perhaps a mix of both. And if the stream just runs by your house and it's clean and uncontaminated, uncontaminated by biological stuff that might make you ill or chemical stuff that might make you ill, and the stream is nearby, you might as well do that. It would be silly, it would be money wasted to buy water, right? So the two are substitutes. If, however, the water in the stream next to your house is dirty, then you would want to switch to cleaner water because you do not want to get ill from drinking dirty water. And the method that comes with this is so-called defensive expenditure or avertive behavior. Instead of buying the dirty stuff, or instead of accepting the dirty stuff that is in this case free, you go for the clean stuff for which you have to pay money, and the amount you are willing to pay for the clean stuff is an indication of how upset you are with the fact that the water in the stream next door is dirty. So that is one type of surrogate market. Another type of surrogate market is where the environment and the market and the marketed goods are complements. And one example is that you may want to enjoy this nice mountain landscape where you have this wide open plain and the mountains in the distance, and you may want to enjoy that view, and you may want to go for a walk or a hike there, or maybe a run, or you may want to cycle there. But you clearly enjoy that. The problem is that this type of landscape is far away. So the only way to get there is to travel and spend money and time. And in this example, you spend your money on petrol, so presumably you're going to drive there, and you spend money and time to get there. So the only way to enjoy the landscape is to have a different market, a related market that allows you to enjoy the landscape. And of course, the prettier the landscape that you would like to enjoy, the further you are prepared to travel. That is, the more time you are prepared to spend to get there, and the more money you are prepared to spend to get there. And that leads to the second method of revealed preferences, which is the so-called travel cost model. And I'll get back to the details later. The third example is where you only can get things as a bundle, where the environmental good is purchased implicitly if you purchase something on the market. And in this case, the thing that you buy on the market or rent on the market is this house, but this house comes with its environs. And it may be that it sits in a rural landscape and you're the sort of person who enjoys living in the countryside, in the wide open spaces, and the peace and the quiet, and the ability to just walk out of your house with your dog and go for a run in or along the wheat field. You're not supposed to run into the wheat field that you see displayed here. And if you buy a house, then you buy also implicitly all the things that are around that house. And what we will see later is that houses that sit in a nice environment go for a higher price than houses that sit in an ugly environment, even if the houses are otherwise the same. And this leads to the third method, so-called hedonic pricing, in this case the price of a house, but also hedonic wage studies, because also if you accept a job, then you do not just accept that workplace, but the type of work, but you also accept your colleagues and the reputation of the company you're working for, and of course the place where that works happen. So that is the third method, where you buy the environment implicitly as a bundle together with something that is traded on the market. The good thing about revealed preference methods is that it's based on real economic behavior. So if you do away with all sorts of biases that can creep in when instead you're looking at planned behavior or stated behavior or hoped behavior, you're looking at people putting their money where their mouth is. Another good thing about revealed preference methods is that it's relatively cheap to do so. Decent revealed preference study can be done in about a year by a PhD student. And it's relatively simple and relatively straightforward to do. The weakness of revealed preference methods is that you can only use it to study use values. You can only use this to look at part of the total economic value. Very rarely things are bought for its option value, and never are things bought for non-use values by definition. So you can only use it for part of the total economic value. Another weakness is that you look at market behavior, and therefore you need to take into account how the market is structured. And imperfect markets do not necessarily reflect people's true preferences, or in imperfect markets the price does not necessarily reflect people's willingness to pay or willingness to accept compensation. The third main weakness is that it's a market, and that is the price is the marginal value. So it's good for relatively small changes in the environment, but it's not at all suitable for relatively large changes in the environment. The method simply is not suited for those things.